only really my surroundings.
And welcome to episode 234 of the Smash Accept podcast. I'm your host, Michael Royer. You can find me on Twitter at DynastyDadFF. It is right in the middle of rookie season. We've been bringing you what we're doing in round one, what we're doing in round two. A lot of you guys have been reaching out saying, hey, how do I get into Patreon? I got to see where these discussion groups are. I got to see where the rankings are. And you guys, it's very easy. Patreon/Smash Accept. Get yourself in there right now. It's the best way, the cheapest out there to really get yourself prepared for your rookie drafts. And nobody better to talk rookie drafts. Nobody better to talk about those late round diamonds in the rough that we've been hitting on for the last 2 years together than my main man Snoog. How you doing today, brother?
Doing good, Dad. The only thing worse than allergies is going through 20 rookie drafts and keeping up with all the waivers after the drafts end. So that's what it's been for me. Rise and shine, Alex. Yes, sir.
Yeah. I love it. Alex Clark, again, we keep saying this, guys, on YouTube. We are on there. We want you guys. We're live streaming there. We're live streaming on Twitter. I still can't call it X. We're doing these early shows. They said rise and shine. I got my C4 energy. I'm ready to go. We want to talk about these gems because last year you had guys that were falling to rounds 3 and 4. You had the Puka Nakuas. You had, some of these diamond in the rough type players. And is there another Puka in this class? The answer is no. But there are guys that you can draft in round 3, round 4 that are going to give you, some serious fantasy production, and they're going to be able to rise in value. A lot of times I look at these guys in round 3 and 4, who's got the clearest path to relevance? Who's a guy that, I could draft at the 304 and flip for a 25-second as soon as he gets an opportunity. And there's a lot of players in this draft. It's deep. I want a quick recap where we've been at. I'm looking up on Keep Trade Cut, and they're very similar to where we are at in round 1. Caleb, Marvin, Malik, Jaden Daniels, Odunze, May, Bowers, McCarthy. That's your top 8. That's, there's different tier breaks in there for me. We got Marvin, then we got Caleb, Malik, and Jaden. Then we got Rome, May, Bowers, McCarthy. Guys, get yourself to 108, honestly, or move back to 108. I've been doing it everywhere, and I've been getting Bowers and McCarthy every single spot. They're just falling there to 8. It's just extreme value. Then we have 9, 10, 11, and I'm even going to include 12 in that tier now, Snoog, where, Worthy with the new Ray Rice news becomes the clear 9. Brian Thomas at 10, Lad McConkey 11, and Jonathan Brooks, I believe, and we're going to do some we're going to do a rookie pod where we YouTube only, where we talk about landing spots we love. And I think Jonathan Brooks is going to fall into that area where he firmly belongs in the 112. Move into the second round, and based off Keep Trade Cut, it's Keon Coleman, Trey Benson, Bo Nix. And for me, that's a tier break. We get into there where, you want to get into that 201 to 203, 204 area. Then we go 205, Penix, Purcell, Leggett, Adonai Mitchell, Blake Corum. Snoog, I'm almost taking Corum over all of them. I'm loving where he's fallen to like 208, 209, because as much as I love the fact that Purcell, Leggett got round 1, Mitchell got round 2 draft capital, it's like Blake Corum has a clearer path to relevance.
Yeah, I love Corum. I mean, he's the guy that we just knew was going to be undervalued throughout the process. People thought he was undersized. People didn't like the age. I think he's a phenomenal talent. I think he is definitely a top 3 running back in this class. He was a guy that could have been the RB1 if he got the draft capital and went to the right landing spot like Brooks did. I still love the Rams. I mean, McVay, he's in the hands of a very smart, offensive-minded head coach. He's there with a guy where Kyron Williams, who is literally the slower, worse version of Blake Corum, just came off like 1,000 yards and 15 touchdowns in a ridiculous season. So they drafted Blake Corum for 2 reasons. He's the bigger, faster, stronger Kyron Williams. He's very coachable, and Sean McVay loves those types of running backs. They use day 2 draft capital on him, and Kyron Williams has an injury history. So Blake Corum's there. They're probably going to be a little 1-2 punch for a bit. I see Blake still in that role by at least his second year.
I like it a lot. And then we move on to 21 through 24. This changes a little bit league to league, but for the most part, you're looking at Roman Wilson, Jalen Polk, Troy Franklin, and Jalen Wright. Our guy JT, He's following along. He's like, yo, you got to get that Jalen Wright in there. He put that in there. He's at pick 24. What I want to talk about today, and Snook, before we move on to round 3, I mean, what are your biggest takeaways from round 2? Because when I was on, I was thrilled, but I was on Under the Helmet the other day with Chad Parsons, and we started talking about Michael Penix again, and I feel like this might be one of the best second round picks, just for the simple fact that Kirk Cousins isn't a lock to stay healthy. You can tell yourself a narrative that Kirk Cousins is going to start the next 3 years. You can also tell yourself a narrative that Michael Penix Jr., after Kirk Cousins gets an injury this year, becomes the starter in an offense that's absolutely elite. So I'm starting to come around on him a little bit more at his ADP. Right now he's going 204. I'm seeing him. I got him at 208 the other day. I'm fine with that. You're talking about a guy that with top 10 draft capital, and I'm not saying I love him. It's just like what I said with Will Levis. I didn't love Will Levis, but Will Levis was getting mid-second round draft capital in some of these leagues. You know as well as I do, I was drafting him and then flipped him for 25 first. Like, that's just the process. I think if you take Michael Penix Jr. and Kirk Cousins goes down to injury, Michael Penix Jr. instantly becomes worth a 25 first. So, like, those are the kind of moves that I make. But what are some other guys that stick out to you in the second round where it's like you either love it or you hate it? It's that area where you want to be in. Talk to me a little bit, because the second round isn't so cut and dry. I feel like the top 14 to 16 is pretty chalk, but then it starts to be a little bit different. So help people out with that while we look into round 3.
Yeah, that's the beauty of this draft. Is like you said, I'm not even a big Penix guy myself at all. I actually did not. He was one of my do not draft guys because I thought his ADP was going to be pushed up through the roof, even pre-draft. He went 8th overall to the Falcons. Good offensive line, elite weapons around him. I mean, Kirk Cousins is there, at least for now. It's a good player to kind of learn behind for a bit. He's 23. I thought he was older than that. He's still just 23. That's not that bad for a quarterback. He went 8th overall, and I'm getting him at like the 208, 209. I have 2 shares of him. One was 208 and one was 209. So that value, like, that's a dart throw. And you're getting a quarterback that went first round, 8th overall to a great situation long term. You can't beat it. I mean, that's just value. But I look at, after we hit like Brooks, Worthy, Ladd, and Thomas, I literally look at the entire second round from like 201 to 210 is like a huge tier. It's like one tier for me. And I think it's crazy that we're getting like Pearsall, Leggett, and like that 207, 208, 209 range. I've seen that a lot. That's first round wide receivers, right? That are going to be used, whether they stink or whether they're good. Like, they're still first round wide receivers. They were used, they were drafted for a reason. That team's going to try at least to get them utilized and try to get their skill sets maximized. So you're going to take swings on those guys at the back end of the second. Then you're getting like a guy like Corum at 211. Even you can get into like some of the more players that I have under our list for diamonds. We're not going to talk about just yet, but it goes all the way to like the mid to early third. And it's just such a deep class. And it's going to be like 2020 all over again, right? We're going to see 5, 6, maybe even 7 guys end up being somewhat fantasy relevant out of that second, third, and fourth round. We got to just hit on like, who are the guys that have the opportunity? Who are the guys that have the cleanest profiles? Who produced in college? Like, who's young? Who produced at a young age? These are the things that carry over to success in the NFL. And we need to just dial it in, lock in these numbers, and figure it out, because that second round is one big mess, in my opinion. And I'm just honestly moving back and getting more draft capital, and then moving back and getting more draft capital. And that's what I found myself doing. I ended up turning Trey Benson into Ricky Pearsall in a 25 second. It's like, I'll do that all day.
So what I'm finding a lot of is I got a few shares of Ladd, a few shares of Brian Thomas falling into that early second. I personally think, and this is where what I love about Dynasty, what I love about rookie drafts and discussing a little bit, is I think the early second, I do have a divide, because I do think that Trey Benson usually goes 201, Keon Coleman usually goes 202, and either Bo Nix, Michael Penix, or your favorite wide receiver goes 203. So I do have a separation there, but I think for me it's like 204 to 229 are pretty much the exact same. So I mean, we're on that same wavelength. I'm just a little bit higher on Benson, a little bit higher on Keon Coleman, just because of the landing spots, who both of them have supreme landing spots. So let's talk about running backs that we're seeing in rounds 3 and 4. The first guy for me is Marshawn Lloyd. So Marshawn Lloyd, most drafts is going late second. Right now in keep trade cut, he's going that early third. And you look at him 5'9", 220 pounds, runs a 4.46. I think at first glance, people are like, this is a really bad landing spot. Some people are like, he's behind Josh Jacobs, he's behind AJ Dillon. Like what are we going to see out of him year one? Then you start to unpackage it a little bit and you say, you know what? Okay, AJ Dillon, we know what he is at this point, right? He's someone that is a replaceable type player. They brought him in because they didn't know what they were going to get in the draft. They didn't know who they were going to go. Josh Jacobs, they sign on the big deal, but if you look at it closely, it's a 1-year deal. Snoog, there is a non-zero chance that if Marshawn Lloyd balls out, and I like the talent a lot. I know you and I were pretty big on him, throughout the process. But if he gets an opportunity, if Josh Jacobs goes down, I think Marshawn Lloyd goes into that one role and A.J. Dillon just stays as that complimentary back who might get a couple red zone carries here or there. Talk to me a little bit about what you think on Lloyd and, is he worth that late second, early third? Is he a guy that could be a gem, where he gets an opportunity and the Packers are like, all right, well, we can get out on Jacobs' deal. We have a cheap rookie here.
Yeah, he's someone that I had as my RB4 pre-draft. He's kind of in that like role where I'm like, I'm not going to draft him unless he's like a very good value in that like early to mid third range. I'm not going to touch him with a second, but like I'd rather avoid him and buy him during the season, like when Jacobs is popping off, right? And then everyone just forgets about him and thinks he's just like another day 2 running back that's like a Tank Bigsby. I'm worried. I mean, I think there is like he is this year's Tank Bigsby, where like he could get some hype up. He's behind a superstar running back that they just paid. Like that player is the priority in that backfield.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe he
Josh
sees
Jacobs,
a little bit on. Maybe he sees a little bit on passing downs, but that's where
people
I'm
don't
worried about with
realize
Lloyd.
they are going to run the tires off of Josh Jacobs. If you look at it, you're like, oh, they signed a 4-year deal. Then they're going to go with some touch management. And then all of a sudden Lloyd's involved and Dillon's involved. And
Yep.
then you have something a little bit more like the Miami Dolphins. But that's not what that contract says. That contract says to me, we're a win now team. We want an elite level running back. We're going to run until the tires fall off. And when they do, I do think Lloyd is that guy that steps in there for Dillon. And that's why for me, I think he's a late round diamond in the rough because it's an opportunity at first glance. And I love what you said because you said in season. Because this is a guy that you might not fall in love with. I mean, I don't think there's a world where Marshawn Lloyd, without a Josh Jacobs injury, gets more than 6 carries in any game. I feel like he's like maybe a 2 carry guy. I mean, who knows? With Dillon active on the roster, they might not even get a couple touches those first weeks. You said Tank Bigsby, which makes everyone kind of throw up in their mouth a little bit. Tank Bigsby was going in that mid-second. Marshawn Lloyd's going in that, early third. Do you see them as the same skill set? Do you see him as like in that area, or is it more just we're talking about the same situation?
Ooh, that's a good question. I think as prospects, Tank Bigsby was a little bit better of like a prospect just from like the NFL lens. But I think Marshawn Lloyd has more like natural talent. Like I think he's like a more talented player, but I think Bigsby was like the better prospect. I don't know though. That's close. They both went third round. Tank went third round in a better running back draft, a much better running back draft.
Correct. Yeah.
That's a good question, but I just view them similarly. And like I said, people were using that second on Tank Bigsby when they could have been drafting Rashee Rice or Jaden Reed. So it's just like
right. And this
I
year,
try to avoid that. Even like Kendre Miller, a guy I love, like he's so talented. He even was a 1-year chalk because he was behind a Camaro. So we got to be careful of that type of stuff.
The only running back I'm comfortable taking in the second round is Blake Corum and Trey Benson. I mean, Trey Benson has been going in the first, so I'll take Trey Benson early second and Blake Corum mid second. But I'm seeing a lot of people taking Lloyd. I see some people taking, like they're getting their guys. I'm seeing them take, like so many running backs way too early. But if they fall to the third round, Snoop, the way I look at my third round picks, and one, if you guys have been listening to the podcast for years, I use them as sweeteners. So it's like I'm getting this deal done because the third round has historically an 8 to 12% hit rate. So meaning one of the third rounders will get at least, and a lot of you guys have been asking what a hit rate is, but literally a RB2 season. If we're talking running backs, they have one of them in their career. So one out of these 12 guys in round 3 likely gets one RB2 season in their entire career. And a lot of times it comes down to injury. They get an opportunity. And I think that's why I personally am drafting wide receivers in the second, and I'm taking running backs in the third, because the running backs here, every single one of them have a 1 to 2 year window. Like, that's where people are like, oh, well, why would you invest in Marshawn Lloyd? I'm not. I'm taking Marshawn Lloyd at 302, and the minute Josh Jacobs goes down, I'm flipping him for a 25-second. Period. It's process over results, unless I'm a contender. Another guy everyone keeps harassing me about, they say, Dad, you know how old Ray Davis is? I was like, he's nowhere near as old as me. But the situation for Ray Davis is beautiful. He goes to Buffalo behind James Cook, where we saw, he's going to get, in my opinion, some carries right off the bat, because we saw last year, where we had James Cook, and then other people were filling in that gap. And I think
Latavius Murray, the prehistoric dinosaur.
Yeah, he was scoring touchdowns. I think Ray Davis jumps in there right now, 5'8", 211, ran a 4.52, so he's not anything sexy. However, I watched his tape. I liked what I saw. I think he easily beats out Tyler Johnson for the RB2 role here. And again, there is a non-zero chance where you see Ray Davis in a spot where you drafted him at 3. I've seen him go as late as 305, 306 in a premium offense where it could become a starter because of the area where he's being taken. Like, he got what 4th round draft capital. So he was in that area where Buffalo at least saw something in him. And it's the age doesn't matter here at all, because when you're taking stabs at guys in the 3rd, 4th round, it's because they're already past there for a reason. They're not round 1, round 2. Ray Davis, Snoog, I think James Cook goes down. I drafted him at 304. I could flip him for a 25-second in season easily if he becomes the starter there.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, I actually got Ray Davis off the waivers in one league.
That's crazy.
And I put 100 fab. I put 100 fab on him, and then I got him 406 in another league.
Yeah.
But speaking, like, Ray Davis is great. Like, that's a great example of just a good dart throw, like making a good bet on a player that is a very smart guy, very smart IQ player, good running back, has the experience under his belt at Kentucky, produced, could catch the ball out of the backfield, had great production his past 2 years at Kentucky. And he goes to an elite offense on a team that's going to want to run the ball, and they've known for running 2 backs, right? Like, Latavius Murray, 34 years old, got the phone call, like, let's go. We need you. We need you to come score like 7 touchdowns because we don't want James Cook to get hurt. Now it's Ray Davis's opportunity. So that's a great one. I love that opportunity.
And he's like a plug and play guy. I think he's ready to come in. Talk to me about Frank Gore Jr., because he's someone that goes late 4th or undrafted. He also went to Buffalo. A lot of people are high on him, and I think there's just thinking, hey, we're talking very similar to, we just hear the name Frank Gore. But Frank Gore Jr., is that someone that you're willing to throw a dart at in the 4th round, or is he more of a, hey, well, we'll throw a couple fab when this is all said and done?
I think it depends on the board in the league. If it's 0.25 per carry, maybe I'd use a 4th on him, but he's a guy, him, Cody Schrader. There's another one that I've been getting off the waivers. It's Cody Schrader, Rashawn Ali to Baltimore in the 6th round, and then Frank Gore Jr. Those 3 I've been trying to get off the waivers in all my leagues. Been putting in some fab on those guys just to throw on the taxi squad, because I actually like Rashawn Ali's tape a lot. I thought he was good. I thought he was doing great at the Senior Bowl before that bicep injury. I think he was the guy that could have been in a 4th or a 5th round pick if he had a combine and everything, because he's a bigger back, great production profile, very, very, very good at making defenders miss and stuff. So he's a guy that I love making the bet on a team where Baltimore, again, is a team that loves to just run those crusty running backs, right? They don't need Alvin Kamara and Derrick Henry, right? Like, Derrick Henry goes down, they finally put some money into the position. All right, Rashawn Ali, Keaton Mitchell, those are the running backs for the year. We're known for that. We've seen Baltimore run those type of running backs the past 3 years. They're never pretty. They've been using Justice Hill until the freaking training wheels fell off them. So that's a good bet to make. And then Cody Schrader, again, another team. The 49ers just cycle through running backs. It doesn't matter if they take them round 2 or round 7. If the round 7 guy is any sort of outproducing that round 2 guy, there's the starter. So these are the type of bets you want to make. Like, you want to follow the elite coaching staff, the team that want to run the ball, and take the young rookies that are there with like a Derrick Henry or a CMC that are up there in age, up there in miles, up there with injuries like that. All it takes is Cody Schrader to get 1 week, 20-point game. Boom, you flip him for a second round pick. Everyone thinks he's like the next Elijah Mitchell. So just process over results, like Dad said. I mean, that's the way you want to do it. Hound and hawk these waiver wires like you're literally an eagle looking for a squirrel. Like that's how you want to be. You want to just go through every league, make sure you're not missing everybody, like sort by ADP, sort by draft position, sort by like just overall ADP on the waiver wire, so you can like see, because the ADP's messed up. Like I see certain guys like 10 spots over guys that I would way prefer, and I missed them on the waiver wire because I was like, shit, I didn't know that guy was there.
Right. And they got guys in the ADP like Ben Sinat's like at 39. You're like, no, he doesn't belong there. So
sort by season ADP.
We have our complete rankings in the Patreon. There's definitely things in there to look at. 3 more running backs that I kind of like in this area, and then there's a couple that I'm not wild on. I'm really starting to get tons of shares of Will Shipley, Audric Estime, because I'm seeing Will Shipley fall to the 4th round. Will Shipley is a dual threat. He can pass. He can use him in the passing game. He can run. He's only got to beat out Kenneth Gainwell, which I don't think is going to happen anytime soon. But Eagles are starting to get similar type running backs. They want a guy. They got Saquon. He can do it both. Kenny Gainwell can do it both. And Will Shipley is dirt cheap right now. And he's someone I liked in the pre-draft process. Right now you can get him. I bought him the other day at a 405. I offered a pair 224s for it. Complete dart throw. Audric Estime is slated in as a guy that has fallen down draft boards, but I've gotten him at the early 4th, Snoog, where you and I liked him pre-draft process. Now he's behind Javonte Williams, who has a little bit of injury history, didn't really shake off too much of the rust last year, where this is a new coaching staff, and they might be in love with him. And one other guy who I think is just absolutely too cheap is Tyrone Tracy. Tyrone Tracy's now only behind Devin Singletary. And it's not that I love Tyrone Tracy's talent, but I think the situation is ripe for opportunity. Estime, 1 injury away from being able to flip for a second. Tyrone Tracy, 1 injury away from, you draft him in round 4, you get a pair of 3s for him. Or you get you have to pair him in a 3rd for a 2nd. And that's that thing. Again, process over results. We're just in that area where it's like, okay, we're just going to do this. We're going to just incrementally move ourselves up, and guess what? You do this twice. Now all of a sudden you took 2 3rd-rounders, turned them into 2 seconds next year, and you're in a spot to absolutely smash 2025 class. So talk to me real quick about those 3 guys, and if you're investing in any of them.
Yeah, I think you nailed it with those, the first 2 especially. Estime
Tracy's a wild card. I get that.
Estime and Will Shipley should be 3rd-round rookie picks, and you can get them in the mid to late 4th, sometimes early 4th. When they're slipping down boards, I've traded up and taken Estime in like 4 different rookie drafts because he was slipping into the 4th round. I'd literally just give up a pair of 4s and get that 4th. I think that's the way to do it. I mean, this is a guy that was an early declare, broke out at a young age, like 3-year stud at Notre Dame, 1,300 yards this past year, 8th in the country, highest graded PFF Power 5 rusher just in general in the country, all of Power 5 with like a 94 grade. Like this guy, 4.0 plus career yards after contact per attempt. Absolute wrecking ball. Sean Payton got his Latavius Murray, and we're going to see that. He's going to be that grinder, that 2-down guy. I literally think the way Sean Payton looks at things is he's always, whoever's putting in the work, whoever's outproducing the other guy is going to go. And like, I don't think he's married to Javonte Williams. I don't think anybody is at this point. I think Javonte Williams is not as explosive as he once was. I think that knee injury took a toll on him. That knee injury he absolutely wrecked that knee. That's going to lead to other injuries probably. He's a guy that, and it stinks to say, but like at this point in time, I think Javonte will never be a workhorse running back. I think he is like a complimentary guy. Like I think I never thought he was a workhorse, but everyone had this dream that he's like this elite workhorse running back. He's not. Audric Estime at this point in time is probably more explosive than him. 44% breakaway run rate in 2023, which is phenomenal. Like this is a guy that has the power. He has the explosiveness in the short areas. He can make defenders miss. He breaks a ton of tackles. It's going to be a 1-2 punch there with Javonte and Audric Estime, and I expect to see a little Jaleel McLaughlin in involved as well in the passing down. So I think literally Javonte is the odd man out. Like, obviously not right away, but I think long term, Estime could steal that role. I really do.
He's a poor man's Mark Ingram in a Sean Payton's offense, and I'm fine with
Yeah.
that. You know, like I think he gets into the end zone plenty. You know, and I love just taking those running backs and I because for me, and my process, and I know yours, you know, you dig a lot deeper into the tape than I do. For me, I'm all about how can I make value? How can I turn this into that? How can I play the short game where for me, I think it's easier for a running back like Audric Estime, like, you know, some of these other guys that we've talked about to get an opportunity and jump in there. Where for you, looking at wide receivers, you know, and before we started the wide receivers, for some reason, Ben Sinnott keeps dropping to the third round. If you can get him there, just do it. Like, honestly, he should be a late second. I'm seeing it right now. ADP is 204. That's just not right. So, or 304. That's not right. Go out there and get him because, especially in tight end premium. Let's start talking about some of these wide receivers now. I mean, there's some guys. There's one guy I love, and then I want you to jump in with your guys. Because for me, I keep getting Jermaine Burton everywhere because if we didn't have the character issues, I think he gets drafted much higher. Right now, at first glance, kind of like what we talked about with Lloyd, you're like, oh, it's a crowded room, but the Bengals are going to throw a ton. He is taking over Tyler Boyd's role, you know, as that number 3. And I think if T. Higgins leaves, is a guy that could really slot in and be a nice wide receiver 2 in this Bengals offense. As of right now, you're buying him as if he's the wide receiver 3 long term, but we don't know T. Higgins' future. So Jermaine Burton is a nice guy that I've been picking up 302 to 306. I'm comfortable drafting him as high as 212, but I don't have to.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, this is a guy that was just super efficient in college. Played at 2 of the best schools in the country in Bama and Georgia. 4-star recruit, 22 years old, got day true draft capital. He was one of the best in the class with percentage outcomes versus press coverage and man coverage, 86th percentile. Shout out Matt Harmon's reception perception because that is just a phenomenal tool. So if you don't know about it yet, make sure you check that out. You can find it on Twitter in his bio. But I mean, Burton just
under a rock.
Yeah, you live under a rock if you haven't heard that yet. But I mean, he can just beat every coverage on the outside. He's got speed. He was an elite athlete at the combine. Jumped out the gym, ran like a 4.45. He can stretch the field well with his speed. He averaged like 20 yards per reception throughout his career, which is phenomenal. That just proves how efficient he can win downfield. He is what Joe Burrow needed, right? And he's a guy that he had the young breakout age. He broke out as a true freshman at Georgia on a very stacked wide receiver room. Like, he has everything. He had a 20 dot, so he's just getting targeted down the field, winning downfield. He's not going to be a guy that gets 9 targets, 10 targets a game, but I could see him being like that Will Fuller, like for the Texans, that those few years when he just couldn't stay healthy, but he was so efficient downfield and producing at a high level.
Hands.
Yeah,
Will Fuller,
exactly. I could see him.
Kenny Pickett. They're like that scene from like Scary Movie where the guy has like the really tiny hands. That was the thing for him. What's crazy to me, Snoog, is I'm seeing guys like Malachi Corley. I'm seeing guys, you know, even like Jalen McMillan going above Javon Baker right now. I'm seeing them go above Luke McCaffrey right now. I'm seeing some of these guys. Javon Baker falls to the 3rd round everywhere, and I know you love him. The other guy that I'm scooping up in the 3rd round, because he got much better draft capital than what we anticipated, and he gets into an area where, you know, he could see some targets. Luke McCaffrey I've gotten as late as 312, and it's like, dude, his NFL draft capital matters as well. So I know you want to ooze about Baker, but hit McCaffrey as well.
Yeah, I don't love McCaffrey at all, honestly. He's a guy that
so cheap.
If I can get him 312 or in the 4th round, I'll take him. But I've seen people take him in that mid-3rd over some guys that I would much rather prefer. But if he's a 401 or a 402 guy, there's nothing to fault with taking a guy that went day 2 draft capital to a team with no real wide receiver 3 at all. Like, that's why they drafted him. He's that gadget guy. He's replacing the Kurt Sam role for the Commanders. So yeah, it's definitely a little bit of opportunity there for him.
Some guys going in similar range. I want to get your opinion on them versus him. Devontae Walker, you know, who went considerably later in the NFL draft to the Ravens. Brendan Rice, who, you know, lands with the Chargers, but it's only that it's Jerry Rice's kid. Malik Washington in Miami. Do you prefer any of those over him?
No, I'd take McCaffrey over all those guys. Those are all waiver players.
that's where he's fallen to. Like I mean, him and Jalen McMillan are the last of that tier. So I like that a lot. Javon Baker, here's your platform. Tell everybody why should they take him over Polk? Because that's where like a lot of people. I'm still taking Polk just because of the draft capital. But should people be taking him in there, or should they just try to trade back a little bit and see if they can get him?
Yeah, I actually have Polk down written on my list right next to me, right next to Javon Baker, because I've actually gotten Polk at that 211 to 302 range in multiple leagues. Like that's where he's going. I've gotten him in the third in a few leagues. Like
that's we have them. I have them right next to each other as well. That's right, like in that same area.
I've literally seen Roman Wilson go over both of those guys. And like, I don't know what you guys need to know and hear about Roman Wilson, but he's a pro caliber wideout, but he's not going to be good in fantasy football. He's not like a volume hog target guy. Like how he's going to be used is not going to translate to like 150 targets and be some fantasy guy. Jalen Polk, Javon Baker, both tied to an elite young rising quarterback. I'm sure Drake may handpick those guys. I'll go quick on Polk. Washington's wide receiver coach is the Patriots wide receiver coach. So there's connection there. The wide receiver room is wide open. Polk's probably going to play some Z's, probably going to play some slot. He's got an elite catch radius. Dude catches everything. Like he doesn't stand out extremely flashy and pretty on film like Javon Baker does, but he catches absolutely everything. He's very tough. He gets the dirty work done. He's very Puka-like, although he's not Puka, but he plays like that. Physical, tough, makes every catch, doesn't care if he gets hit after the catch, he's still going to come down with it. Javon Baker, though, I mean, come on. Luke McCaffrey, he eats those dudes up for breakfast. Like, he said it himself. He makes people in wheelchairs stand up. Like, this kid, he was an analytic gem, not only to mention, as well as how his film looked. He was great. I mean, 1,000-yard season, 2.53 career yards per route run. He had like 7.3 yards after catch per reception in 2023. 4-star recruit, played at Bama, then transferred. Devontae Smith highly touted this kid. He played and trained with Drake May when Drake May was committed to Bama. I mean, his ADP right now is like wide receiver 16 in rookie drafts. 3.00 plus yards per team pass attempt, 3.00 plus yards per route run. I think he led the entire class and NCAA in yards per reception with like 21.3 in 2023. Like this kid is just an absolute beast. He's got that elite body control, quick release off the line of scrimmage. He has all the traits that people are looking for in like that alpha X wide receiver. And he just slipped to the 4th round. I'm assuming it was something to do with characteristics or traits or something, but he said it himself. There ain't no way in hell that there's 10 wide receivers better than him in this class. And I'm on board with that. Like he was my wide receiver 9 pre-draft, and I'm fine taking him as high as that. Like you don't have to. That's a good thing. Like you don't have to spend a 2nd round pick on him. Like I've gotten him in that early to mid 3rd in every league that I've drafted him, and I've seen him go 308. I've seen him go 310. That's just value. Like if you're really looking and hoping you're drafting the next Puka Nacua, Javon Baker's probably going to be that guy where you have a chance at getting him. So he was an analytic gem. That's the process we're following. Like when you get to those day 3, day 2 guys, round 2, round 3, round 4, follow the production, follow the film, the guys that looked good on film. Don't care about NFL draft capital at that point because they really don't know what the hell they're doing after like the first round. Like we saw how gross the NFL drafted after that first round. Like Polk went over Adonai Mitchell. He went over a bunch of other guys that were better than him, that a lot of people thought were better than him. They care so much more about like who's good. Like they care about who's coachable, what the traits are, where they can slot in for them. Do they need a slot guy? Do they need the next guy? Like NFL teams draft for team needs more than talent and situation. So
yeah, and Baker and Franklin almost fall to that area where they're almost 3rd round draft.
Franklin,
right there in that early 4. You know, statistically or historically, I should say, the 4th round and after for wide receivers is a dead zone. Like you literally have a hit rate that is very small. When you're banking on guys that get drafted round 4 or later, you're looking for guys that have an elite trait. You know, something that, you know, Puka's route running, or we look at Javon Baker's athleticism or some of these other things. You don't want to take a guy just because it's like Oh, okay. Well, he's an okay situation. Like round 4, you really got to pay attention to who your wide receivers are.
It's crazy because Baker and Franklin both got phenomenal situations. I mean,
They did. They
Franklin's
did.
playing with his college QB in a wide open room, and Baker's playing with a guy that he trained with almost to be his college QB in a wide open room. So
Yeah.
those guys in Polk are the main guys I am targeting in that late second, like early to mid third round range. And Burton, like
I
those
put a
4 guys you need to get on your roster.
I put a poll out yesterday because in Smash Accept 15, I traded up to, and if you look at your ADP, he doesn't make any sense in Sleeper. He's supposed to go in round 15, which I was like, I'm not going to wait for this. I'm going to move up to round 11 to get Dontavian Wicks. Dontavian Wicks goes the same area as Troy Franklin. I put a poll out there yesterday, and it was 54 to 46, where now we're talking about, okay, if I can take something I've already seen on an offense that is incredible, like this Packers offense. If I can get Dontavian Wicks for Troy Franklin, I'm going to do that. Like,
Yep.
I'm going to make that kind of trade. I was blown away that Twitter had it almost dead even. And in our draft, I took Wicks, and then the next person took Franklin. So it's like, no knock on Franklin, but on the same thing, you can fall in love with these guys in this process. But if they do go round 4, we gotta at least temper expectations a little bit. Where if you're
Yep.
taking it with second round draft capital and you can trade for Dontavian Wicks, if you can trade for, something that's a little bit more of a proven asset in that late second, I'm okay with that for sure. Any other wide receivers? I'm seeing some hype around McMillan because we're talking about Godwin moving to the slot, which is sexy as hell because that's where he performs. So he should be moving up your boards. But I think McMillan on the outside, at least with Mike Evans getting a little bit older in his career, I think Chris Godwin's on the last year of his contract. Is he someone that is going to take over in that wide receiver 2 role going in the future, or is he someone that's pretty easily replaceable?
I liked him on film. I thought he was very even with Polk. Like I literally thought there was a chance he would be better than Polk. I think he was just more fun, more explosive, like a better player. Produced right alongside Roma Dunze for the first 3 years. Got injured year 4. I don't love this situation. Like I don't like I think it's the Mike Evans show and that's it. Like Godwin had what, 1 touchdown, 2 touchdowns. Like I know he had 1,000 yards, but it's just not pretty there. But I think he's going to be definitely the wide receiver 3 in Tampa with some upside there. I mean, again, a guy that you're getting in the late third, early fourth, mid third, like fine value. Like you want to fade like the Devontae Walkers. You want to fade like those type of guys. Like I'm not touching Marshawn Lloyd, Roman Wilson. Like I don't really care for those guys. I just don't see upside there for those guys. Like I'm chasing upside in that 3rd round. Javon Baker, Troy Franklin. I'm chasing those analytical gems that look great on film with clear path to opportunity. Like I don't care if I draft the Steelers wide receiver 3 or the Steelers 3rd option, right? Like the Steelers suck. I don't give a shit about that. Like I want a guy that could be the wide receiver 1 on their team. So that's
You
kind
and
of
I are
my
going to talk.
process.
We're going to talk Roman Wilson after the pod because
Yeah.
I've been picking him up. But anyways, we'll go back to
He's
that.
fine. He's fine. I just don't really think. I think he's like at best like maybe a Tyler Boyd type of player.
Okay.
So it's just
Yeah.
like. But Jacob Cowling is a guy that I've
Yes.
gotten in that late
If
4th
he
round
didn't go to
range
the
or the
49ers,
waivers.
I got him. If he didn't go to the 49ers as late as he did, like if he goes somewhere where they're in need of a wide receiver, I liked him a lot higher in the process. Like
Yeah,
he is,
he went
you can
4th
get him
round
now. Well, I'm trying to see where he's even at on ADP. Like he's
waivers.
51. Behind Johnny Wilson, behind Rasheen Ali, behind Frank Gore Jr. That doesn't make a lot of sense.
He's hit the waivers in a few of my leagues, and I put 100 fab on him, and I got him in every single league. I've prioritized him in waivers. Him and Estime, the 2 guys in the 4th round, I've been targeting like crazy. Again, they're analytical gems. They had the production profiles. They broke out at young ages. Those are the guys you want to target in these rookie drafts. That's how you hit on the Pukas. That's how you hit on Rashee Rice. That's how you hit on Jaden Reed. That's how you hit on these type of guys. I wasn't in on Puka, so I can't say that, but I was in on Reed and Rice. And I was in on Wicks.
Yeah.
It's a trend. It follows the process. But Cowling, a guy goes round 4. If Ayuk leaves, Pearsall steps into that 2 role. Cowing's in that 3 role.
Mm-hmm.
If someone goes down, if Debo goes down, if Kittle goes down, like there's going to be opportunity here. He's tied to an elite offensive-minded head coach. I love Cowan there in that 4th round range, even on the fab. And then Kimani Vidal. We didn't talk about him, but
that was my next guy up there. I was like, I wanted to talk about him and Bucky Irving real quick because I think if we flip flop their position, they're going to go in there. But Vidal is like super athletic. He goes to the best situation, right?
Yep.
That Chargers running back room is ripe for the taking. Gus Edwards, he's going to get his touchdowns until he gets injured. J.K. Dobbins is the ultimate wild card, but why not take a shot on Kimani Vidal, who's been going early fourth? I've seen some people take him as early as 301, and I'm out on that. But if you can get him in the fourth round, I mean, talk to me a little bit about what people will be getting, and the percentage that you see that he takes over. Does it take an injury, or is there a spot where he could potentially rise here?
Yeah, I think it's gonna have to be an injury for him. I mean, I think they're pretty married to that old school Ravens room with Dobbins and Gus Edwards there. I think it's gonna take some roller coasters for him to get on the field. But two things I want to highlight about him: he was productive in college, and he was a good receiving back. I think he had 20 plus receptions in 3 out of 4 seasons. He was PFF's best graded pass blocker at the running back position in 2023 with like almost an 80 grade. He's good where it matters, where coaches love. Like, that's how you get on the football field when you're a 6th round pick, right? Like, you need to be that guy that is great in pass protection. You're going to need to be that guy that can catch the ball out of the backfield, that versatile guy that's also productive in the ground game. That's what Kimani Vidal is. He had some good analytics, some good things to like about his profile. That's why I'm targeting him. Again, we're telling you like basically 4th round to waiver player guys right now. Maybe Vito's been getting a little higher draft. I think he's been more in that late 3rd round range. In some, it's hard for me to tell because all my rookie drafts have been done for a few days now. So I know things are changing now in a lot of these drafts. But I mean, this list of guys that I gave you, Baker, Franklin, Polk, Burton, Cowing, Estime, Vidal, and Wright, everything about these guys screams good analytics, good breakout ages, good production at some point, or good production throughout college. And they all have some sort of like flashy, good talent, and they're versatile assets. That's what you want to chase. I don't think chasing just random 6th round running backs that are in buried situations that can't catch the ball out of the backfield. Like, don't chase Braylon Allen, Isaiah Davis. Like, those are guys people liked. They're behind Breece Hall now. I mean, maybe Braylon Allen in the 4th round is good value. Like, I'm fine with that. Shipley in the 4th round is great value as well. But like Isaiah Davis, he'll never see the field. And I'm seeing him get drafted in that late 4th. And I'm seeing people taking him over Cowing on the waivers. Javontes Walker, Brendan Rice, like all those guys. Like, don't even waste your time drafting those type of guys. Like,
I got you. The last guy that I want to, because people are saying, well, we play super flex. Who's the guy? There's only one quarterback I'm investing in the 3rd round. Spencer Rattler. Spencer Rattler is a draft potential steal in the 3rd round because we know he had high pedigree. We all watched the Netflix series and everything like that, and slowly dropped down in value year after year. But now you got a guy that 2 years ago had round 1 pedigree written all over it. Now, we have him go to a situation in the Saints where Derek Carr has not been great, and Derek Carr goes down to injury. Spencer Rattler becomes a starter. He's worth a second. You flip him then. And, again, he could take over that job because they're not in love with Derek Carr there. So this has been a fun episode. We want to make sure you guys were, set up for your round 3, 4 guys. If you guys are doing a rookie draft right now, make sure you guys get into that Smash Accept Patreon. My rankings are in there. Snoog's rankings are in there. Top 48 Superflex. You have rooms in there to talk about every single draft slot, every single opportunity you can for trades in these rookie drafts. You have 300 people in there just talking shop 24/7. So make sure you guys get in there. And if you're really out there, I mean, there's a lot of you are reaching out to Snoog and I was like, hey, can we get our roster evaluated? Can we get our rookie draft evaluated? Can we, our schedules are really starting to fill up with that. They're lining up. But if you guys want to, we'll help you guys out with your rookie drafts even. We'll try to do those things. There's a couple guys that are like, yo, can I get your phone number for the weekend? I know I got this trade. And I'm like, all right, let's see what we can do. We want to help you guys the best we can. So, reach out to us. Make sure you guys subscribe to our YouTube channel. Make sure you guys check out the Patreon. Thanks again for tuning in, guys, and enjoy the process. Boom.
Boom. That was a good one.
Hit them